going on, everybody out there? This is Popular Stranger, and we are back at you again today with another Madden 20 news video. This is video number 4 of 4. Let's recap on what we've done over the last 48 hours or so. Last night, there was a live stream that EA hosted on Twitch. They've been doing every single Thursday night, and they've been giving us Madden 20 news. Next week, we're going to get a gameplay stream, kind of like a part 2 to the first one that they did a couple weeks ago. Really looking forward to that because we know the gameplay has been really, a rough spot for the last 2 years in Madden. But yesterday they gave us Madden Ultimate Team news, and there was so much information that I broke it down into 4 videos. So if you missed any of them, just to recap, the first video we talked about missions, which is a new way to discover content in Madden Ultimate Team 20. The second video was about ultimate challenges and basically rewards in the new solo challenges in Madden Ultimate Team, how you can earn rewards with a new feature called Stars. Video number 3, which we uploaded this morning, go check that one out if you missed it. We talked about a couple different things in that one. House Rules is going to be changing, so there's some new gameplay features that we might see in House Rules. And then we also talked about what we're going to be able to do with the MUT Master collectible as far as it relates to Madden 20, limited time cards and how much they're going to be quick selling for. And there was one other thing that I am drawing a blank on right now. Putting players at different positions, which is something I've been crying for forever. So taking an outside linebacker, putting him in at, a defensive end position without hurting their chem and whatnot. So Jake answered a couple of those popular questions. But for this video, and this is something that we talked about last week as well, is the Superstar abilities and X-Factor abilities. We've gotten a lot of information about it, but we got more last night, and in the second half of this video, I will show you guys the live stream clip from Jake and Kraylo talking about this stuff in detail, but we're going to go ahead and read the blog. The link to this blog will be down below in the description, and we're going to focus just on Superstar abilities. So, red chems are gone, and that's what this article is going to say. New thing is Superstar abilities, and then we also have X-Factor abilities. Superstar abilities and X-Factors will also be supported within Madden Ultimate Team 20. What the community dubbed as red chems in Madden 19 are basically gone now. Some chemistries from 19 will make their transition to 20, but they will also be brand new ones that are significantly stronger. My big thing here, and I think you guys would probably agree, is that there's probably half the red chems don't or never worked, and I think this will be great, but they need to work because it's something that you're not necessarily spending money on these items, but you are spending training and coins, which can translate to money, and you're paying for a product that's not working. It's incredibly frustrating. So all this is great, but they need to work. I think that's my biggest thing here. They're meant to be things that eliminate chance and provide more guaranteed results. So we hate randomness in Madden, especially when it comes to the gameplay, and this looks like they're trying to take a stride towards fixing things like that. The 50-50 things, being true 50-50 and not tilted in some ways. Your running back might juke faster, or your quarterback might have perfect passing when outside the pocket. For example, more specific details for how Ultimate Team will be integrating Superstar abilities will be revealed at a later date. So then they also talked about player archetypes, which is something that's been in CFM for a while, as far as I know. I played CFM slightly last year and kind of got introduced to them, but it's basically building your team around a certain kind of concept, and that concept affects certain players. So another exciting feature added this year in continued effort to differentiate players is the addition to player archetypes in Madden Ultimate Team. There are a couple noteworthy aspects to player archetypes, beginning with the ability to now craft different player overall calculations for each archetype. Up until this point, we have had to use one overall formula position for each position, and that really made things difficult when it came to spots like tight end and outside linebacker. Now we have Archetypes. We'll be able to better differentiate a speed rushing OLB versus a pass coverage OLB, or a vertical tight end threat, or a blocking tight end. Also, we'll be able to use these archetypes to appropriately offer gameplay abilities to the archetype that makes sense. So for example, and this is something you'll hear Jake talk about, a field general QB will not have escape artist. So he talked about how Tom Brady will never, no matter what happens, have the ability to get escape artists because that's just not his style of play. Not even in Madden Ultimate Team, where some things are unrealistic. Which allows QBs, okay. Scrambling QB, where we go here? Scrambling QB will not have access to pocket Deadeye. So that's saying like a, probably a Michael Vick will never have that Deadeye ability, no matter how overblown and unrealistic Mike Vick cards are in Madden Ultimate Team. Choosing what you want on the field has never been as important as it will be in MUT 20, so I like it because it's given a lot of customization. Let's quickly recap what are XFactors and then Superstar abilities. Let me rewind that. Superstar abilities are basically the new red chem. You can tag them onto a certain player, and then that certain player has special features. What Jake said, because a lot of people were worried about this, is that you can only, in Madden Ultimate Team 20, have 3 on each side of the ball. So a lot of people worried about these things being overpowered. You're only going to be able to pick 3 of your offensive players and 3 of your defensive players to have this. So that's interesting. Do you go with like, a tight end, wide receiver, quarterback, running back, wide receiver, all offensive line, the endless possibilities? It's going to be really cool to see what the new meta is going to be next year when it comes to these things. And then on defense, do you load up your secondary? Do you load up your linebackers in secondary? Do you put it all on pass rush? Lots of customization. I like it. And I think the fact that only 3 on each side of the ball feels like it's going to be a little less OP. And then X factors are basically in-game criteria. So the Mahomes one is the best example. You have to complete, so many, and this is going to change or could change. You have to complete 5 30-yard passes within a game. If you do that, you get the ability to throw an 80-yard pass. But when you think about it, how many times are you throwing 80-yard passes in a game? You have to worry about getting sacked. They already said that the pass rush is going to be better this year. And then if you get sacked, you lose that X Factor ability right away. So it sounds like things are going to be balanced. Of course, we're going to have to wait and play the game to find out ourselves. But I'm liking the information that I heard last night, especially with the limit to 3 on each side. That excludes the OP-ness that I think, the OP-ness, wow. Okay, the overpowerness that I think a lot of the community thought we were going to run into. So watch the rest of the stream. Let me know what you guys think down below in the comment section. Thank you for supporting the videos and watching it. I'm out for now. Peace.
Good stuff. Good stuff. All right, guys. So first off, Jake, last week we talked about Superstar, X Factors, zone abilities, Superstar abilities. There's a lot of questions from the community, like how is that going to go ahead and play a factor in Madden Ultimate Team? So can you give us a little bit of insight on how this new feature is going to play a factor in MUT?
Sure. Well, before we get into it, I'm sure not everybody tuning in tonight was able to check in Clint last week. So what are X Factors? What are Superstar abilities? So let's start with X Factors, right? This is a way, this whole feature that gameplay took on this year was really, a great attempt of bringing more authenticity to the game, right? So what is something that, me as a player that I'm always looking for is how are we able to differentiate players, have these guys really stand out, make the stars feel like stars. Again, something that we're hearing a lot in the building this year. And I think gameplay's absolutely nailed that epic this year. So let's start with X Factors. X Factors are things that you have to earn in the game. It's not something that you just have with. So the example last week was with Patrick Mahomes, our cover man. His X Factor ability is he can throw it 80 yards in the air, right? He has bazooka, right? But it takes something for him to get that. That is not an every down ability for Patrick Mahomes. So that is tuned in a way where he has to meet some in-game gameplay criteria. As soon as he's met it, he can throw those 80-yard bombs. There are also superstar abilities. Superstar abilities are those things that are part of that player's DNA. He has it on every single play. So again, going back to last week with Patrick Mahomes, he has the ability to have escape artist, right? So he has extra locomotion when he gets outside the pocket. He feels extremely different than when you're playing with Tom Brady. So that's a little bit quick high-level recap as to what that feature entails. So as you mentioned, a lot of questions last week. How does that play in the Ultimate Team? It'd be very easy to think that, in Madden Ultimate Team, hey, I'm creating this huge roster. I've got 25 guys on both sides of the ball. I'm going to load all these guys up with X Factors and, and superstar abilities. And for a while, I'll be honest, we were kind of going down that path as well. And we really started to pull the reins back a little bit, and we kind of were asking ourselves and play testing, is this still meeting the goals that gameplay wanted to do? Can stars still feel like stars in that world? And we feel like the answer is no. So while given for the applicable content, you will be able to still put abilities and X factors on essentially whoever you want to. But the key thing in Ultimate Team is when you're in that lineup screen, you're going to denote the 3 players on offense and the 3 players on defense that are going to take not only that X factor, but also those passive superstar abilities as well. So we feel like that's going to bring a very interesting meta. There's going to be some really unique choices that have to happen there and combinations. I think that's going to drive a lot of conversation. People are always going to be saying, no, I'm telling you, go with QB and 2 wide receivers, or no way, man, the running game's really strong this year. I'm putting a couple on my O-lineman. I'm getting my back ready to go. We're running it downhill. A lot of interesting choices here. So that's a really high level as to how Madden Ultimate Team's bringing it in. I think we can cut to our first screen here where, we're kind of bringing this into the player upgrades feature that we delivered last year. So, the red chems, as a lot of the, community like to call them, those are essentially gone. Some of those have morphed and sort of like transcended into these abilities that gameplay has built for us. But those are no longer a thing for us. So now it's all about getting into these abilities, and there's a long sort of escalation plan and how are we going to let certain players have access to these things. Those are things that are still in flight. We're super pumped to be here on May 15th talking about this, but there's a long way to go between now and when the game launches. So just keep in mind, we're super excited to be here talking about this earlier than really we ever have before. But a lot of this is really kind of, to get the feel for what we're doing. There's a lot of answers that we don't have yet. And that's going to come as we continue to build content and continue playtesting to make sure that we get it as right as we can once we launch the game. So again, with that said, you're coming in here, this player has earned the, option to equip some of these abilities. And again, just for anybody who's not familiar with how that worked this year, you get the ability slot, you toggle over, boom. This player, if he meets specific criteria, he has access to these different abilities. Boom, equip it. So whereas the main game and how Clint talked about it last week when we're building out those rosters, that is something that they are controlling. That is a huge conversation with everybody from Dustin Smith to Clint to a lot of different people on the in-game
For sure.
team.
I heard about the triggers and everything.
Ultimate Team will be the place where you can go and actually customize those options, right? That even goes for, let's flip it all the way back to Bazooka with the X Factors. You can customize those as well. So we'll go in there, we'll sort of dictate, what makes sense for which particular player, and build out options for those. I'm talking a lot, but we're on a roll.
No, it's great. It's great because I think one of the things that you're talking about, you said it's specific type of players. You kind of hinted at that.
Yep.
That's like the new thing I heard around here in the office about Archetypes, right? And Archetypes is going to bring a different level to Madden Ultimate Team next year. You and I have had a lot of conversations about this where it's like, at the end of the day, a lot of the people in the Madden Ultimate Team community feel like the players is just a whole bunch of ratings. They all play the same.
Yep.
There's a uniqueness that's coming with Archetypes. Can you talk more about that?
Yeah, no, I'm super stoked to talk about Archetypes. There's a couple of huge benefits that we get, and it continues to feed into that authenticity and differentiating players. So on one hand, we'll talk about this first, which is we'll go in and we'll choose what archetype fits for each player when the game comes out. And with that, we'll be able to say something like, again, I'm kind of making some stuff up here, but this one makes sense. Tom Brady is a field general quarterback, right? We are going to tag him as a field general. What does that mean when it comes to us talking about X factors and abilities? That means that we've gone in and said, these are all the abilities that make sense for field generals, right? So Tom Brady's not going to have access to escape artists. That's not a thing that he'll ever have, no matter if he's 99s across the board. He's never going to have access to that. And we feel like that's an important decision when it comes to, I want to get into a field general. But what that does mean is he's going to have things like, maybe perfect passing in the red zone, perfect passing on lobs or deep throws. There's a lot of different options there. And those are things that something like a scrambler will not have access to. So being able to have those very critical choices when it comes to building out what do you want on the field at any given time, I think is going to be huge for us. And then we talk about the other piece to that. The other thing that gets us really excited is, up until this point, Madden Ultimate Team has had to go in and build its own special OVR calculation for each position.
For sure.
So what does that mean? For positions like outside linebacker, tight end, we are going and having to do our best to say, well, yep, pass rushing means something. Yep, zone. Obviously, there's people who need to have that. Also means something. Being able to play the run. Oh, yep, that also needs to play into this. And you sort of get what we've been able to deliver up until this point. So when guys come out and you're like, well, how is he meeting that rating? The ratings don't justify it. Or this guy's just kind of good at everything. He's not great at everything. Archetypes allow us to take that next step. Let's say outside linebackers has 4 different archetypes. Well, that means we get to build 4 different formulas for those. So when we have a pass covering linebacker, that means we get to weigh things more into, some of those physical stats. Obviously, things like zone coverage and man coverage come into play, right? But if you have our run stuffer, right? Okay, now we get to value and weigh things more on strength, tackle, hit power, things like that. It's going to, I think, provide very unique and interesting choices. When a player comes out, I think it's going to be much more of a conversation than it has been in the past, and a lot of choices for the players on, again, what do you want out of that 53?
Yeah, no, I think it's awesome because I think one of the things we hear a lot of times within the community is, ratings. There's just, how do they work? How do the OVR calcs work? And I think there's a lot more differentiation going to be happening now as we go into Madden 20. So that's great stuff to hear.
Cool.
So one question that we've gotten a lot as well is, will every team have at least one player with an X Factor ability? And how's that going to work in Madden Ultimate Team?
So that particular question to me feels more of like a main Madden question. Will every team have something like that? I would really probably defer that to Clint. I don't know if everybody's going to have an X Factor, but I think every team will be represented on some curve of superstar abilities, X Factors plus superstars, only X Factors. I'm sure there's going to be a mix of everything when it comes to the 32. Now, when it comes to Ultimate Team, obviously a little bit of a different ballgame. We haven't talked about this yet. It's not something that we're going to get into tonight, but what does the launch content look like? What are we planning on? Is it something where, a lot of people are going to have access to those abilities right away? Is it only going to be for really the top end and those same sort of elite guys? We don't have answers for that. And honestly, where I think we're going to land on is somewhere balanced in the middle. I think that there's an opportunity for us to have some of the lower OVR guys have access to some of the lower end of the abilities in terms of the power scale.
For sure.
And then again, part of differentiating and being authentic, those superstar players will have access to more things.